Statistically, it is almost impossible to escape law enforcement. The amount of times people have tried to get away in a cop chase has either resulted in a crash, them being caught, or them being caught later on with the evidence they left behind. But one car has managed to defy the statistics. A car in Britain. The Vauxhall LOTUS Carlton. Now I know what you're thinking. Lotus making a 4-door sedan? That can't be a good car, because Lotus makes sports cars. And making a sports car is way different than a sedan. That could not possibly be a good car. And it's got a Vauxhall badge on it. What is that? Well, before I can explain the Carlton, I think it's good to explain that this is not the first time Lotus has messed around with sedans. To explain this, we have to go all the way back to the 1960s. Lotus boss Colin Chapman wanted to build his own engine for racing. Why? Well, the engines he was buying were frankly too expensive and not cost efficient. At the same time, Ford wanted to make a twin-cam version of their Kent engine. Yes, they actually named an engine Kent. Google it. That is the best name ever. Naturally, the two made an agreement, partnered up, and Lotus tuned up a high-performance 1.5-liter engine so that they could put it in their cars as well as Ford's. And Lotus used it in the 23, which was ran in the Group 4 category in 1962 for sports car racing. And while they were working on this engine, some engineers at Ford looked at it and said, "It's pretty small. Do you think we could fit it in the Cortina? Because we just launched that with the normal 1.5-liter engine, and it should be able to fit, right?" Lotus said, "That is a brilliant idea," and agreed to build a high-performance Cortina with the Kent engine. Ford sent 1,000 Mark I Ford Cortinas to Lotus's headquarters. They were fitted with the 105 horsepower heavily modified Kent engine, as well as reworked suspension, a new braking system, improved weight distribution, a gearbox from their new Lotus Elan, and a speedometer. Yes, the original Cortina was so slow it did not need a speedometer because it was not possible to speed in it. Needless to say, this new Cortina was substantially faster. And it was so fast and successful, they made a Mark II version that was a little bit easier to build and manufacture, that had 4 more horsepower. The Ford Lotus Cortina was so successful, it was sold from 1963 all the way up until 1970, and while it was doing that, it completed Ford's primary objective: compete in motor racing. Jim Clark won the British Touring Car Championship with them in 1964, and that was just the start of it. It won the European Touring Car Championship, the Belgian Touring Car Championship, the Austrian Touring Car Championship, the New Zealand Touring Car Championship, the Snetterton 500, and the Nürburgring 6-hour endurance race. And it wasn't just tarmac that the Cortina excelled at. It also won the San Remo Rally and was immediately disqualified. So they quickly bounced back and proceeded to win the Acropolis Rally, the RAC Rally, the Tulip Rally, the Alpine Rally, the Greece Rally, and the Swedish Rally. Yeah. By the end of production in 1970, the Cortina, as brittle as it was so successful, they sold 7,399 of the things. They're amazing cars, and still super collectible to this day. With the proof that Lotus can make a killer sedan, we fast forward some 20 years to General Motors. They wanted to make a four-door sedan that could rival the BMW M5. There was a problem. The closest thing they had to a performance sedan was the 204 horsepower Vauxhall Carlton GSI, which, to be fair, for the price range and for the class it was in, it was pretty good for the era. But it wasn't exactly M5 rivaling. And then, GM remembered, they owned Lotus. I guess you just forget in your back pocket somewhere. And they told Lotus to make the best four-door on Earth. And they were given the Carlton as a starting point. First, they had to deal with the engine. The engine was bored out from 3-liter straight six to a 3.6-liter straight six. Then, they threw on a big old pair of twin turbochargers on it. But how would the engine deal with that massive forced induction? Well, the block was reinforced, along with other components like the crankshaft, the pistons, and the conrods. The compression ratio was also reduced, and in order to deal with the torque, a 6-speed manual transmission was swapped in from the Corvette ZR1, and the differential was taken from a V8-powered Holden Commodore. The result of all of this was 377 horsepower, 419 foot-pounds of torque. That is 170 more horsepower than the standard GSI. That's insane, to get 170 horsepower from the same block. That is ridiculous, especially in 1990. But how are you going to deal with an extra 170 horsepower when it comes to turning? Well, Lotus just happened to be masters at suspension tuning. And it also turns out that the GSI suspension was already pretty darn good. So they simply took the GSI suspension and heavily modified it to make it even better and improve high-speed stability and balance. Now the car still weighed 3,600 pounds. It is a four-door sedan from the 90s after all. So in order to stop that massive speed and massive weight, they threw in 12.9-inch front brakes and 11.8-inch rear brakes. These were massive brakes for the era. So we have a 377 horsepower, four-door Vauxhall with brakes bigger than a foot in diameter. The specs were equally impressive. 0 to 60, 5 seconds flat. 0 to 100 in under 11 seconds. And a verified top speed of 177 miles an hour. Although, while that was the official speed given by Vauxhall, independent media tests with bone stock Carltons have recorded speeds as high as 186, making it one of, if not the, fastest four-door sedans on Earth. Oh, and it wasn't just four-door sedans that was faster than. There's this little company in Italy called Ferrari that made the Testarossa around the same time. You know, flat 12 engine, mid-engine supercar from Ferrari. Pretty darn good. It was faster than the Testarossa to 100 miles an hour by a whole second. You could go from 0 to 100 miles an hour a second faster than a Ferrari in a Vauxhall. And here's the crazier thing, not only did it have a higher top speed, it looked like a freaking Vauxhall sedan. And apart from the Lotus badging and the aerodynamic tweaks, which are very minor, I will add, it looks like a normal sedan. It is the ultimate sleeper car. One thing that was not sleep about, though, was the price. In 1990, this cost £48,000. Yeah, that's in 1990s money. That's over $100,000 today. That's a lot of money for a Vauxhall. And things got worse when they launched it in a recession. Not the best marketing move, I'll be honest, but they can't really plan for those things. Vauxhall expected to sell 1,100 a year, but, well, a recession and a ridiculously high price tag meant that only 950 were made. 320 of them were badged as Vauxhall Carltons, and 630 were badged as the sister car, the Opel Omega. Just like every good thing in the world, the Lotus Carlton caused a bit of controversy. Some members of the press, I'm not going to name any names, Autocar, said that it was just simply too fast for a four-door sedan, and that Vauxhall should follow BMW's honorary approach of limiting the car to a top speed of 155 miles an hour electronically. Vauxhall said no, but the biggest issue was not the top speed of a four-door sedan. It was the fact that at the end of the day, even with the supercar crushing performance, the massive top speed, the Lotus tuning, it was still a Vauxhall. And that meant it had the locks of a Vauxhall. And that meant it was a thief's wet dream. Think about it. It's stupid fast. It's got a massive trunk. And it's got four doors that can comfortably seat four people with bags of money. And out of all the robberies in all the land and all the world, the Carlton was at the forefront of all of them. And one Carlton in particular was at the top of the thief food chain. On November 26th, 1993, a Lotus Carlton with the license plate 40RA was stolen in Britain's West Midlands. Over the next few weeks, said 40RA was used in several ram raids to steal over 20,000 pounds of goods. What is this exactly? Well, they would take the car, drive it into the store, steal it, and then bolt out. Now, these stores are located in the cities, where the police cars couldn't exactly keep up. First, it was because the British police had a policy of not getting in high-speed chases, instead of relying on helicopters. Also because the police cars had a top speed of 90. Yeah, they weren't catching it anytime soon. I mentioned the police using the helicopter as a reliance to stop the thieves from getting away. This is unconfirmed, I should make that statement clear, but reportedly, that plan failed because 40RA outran the helicopters down the freeway. That doesn't happen very often. A local police officer made a statement in the media saying, "We simply haven't been able to get near the thing, and it looks like we never will. The robbers were getting so brazen with their thefts, they robbed the store 30 yards away from a police station. And they got away! In fact, they got away with all their crimes, and 40RA was never recovered, and the robbers were never caught." Robberies were getting so bad, there were government hearings on whether or not the Carlton should be banned from sale, because it was too dangerous for the roads. But to be honest, the government regulations wouldn't really matter, because sales were so bad of the Carlton that it didn't justify production, and it was discontinued in 1992. In a short time frame of just 3 years, the Lotus Carlton was able to piss off local residents, police officers, and government officials. It didn't make any money. It technically was never the fastest production car if you count the Alpina B5 thingy, but it did its job. It showed not just Britain but the world that Vauxhall and the General Motors Group could make the ultimate performance sedan. And to be honest, this is the peak for Vauxhall. It is still one of their most powerful cars they've ever made. Certainly the most practical, powerful car they've ever made. And sure, they have the pretty darn good Vauxhall Insignia VXR with 320 horsepower, but it doesn't really have the magic of that Carlton. The Lotus Carlton is a gem. One that can never be repeated in history, or it's very unlikely it'll be repeated in history, and its mark on the automotive landscape of Britain is still felt to this day. That's a pretty big statement for such a small car.